how Myanmar is becoming the battleground of Sino-Indian rivalry. Very few in the corridors of power in New Delhi know anything about Wolong, the easternmost town of India on the tri-junction of the China-India-Myanmar border. It was the scene of fierce fighting during the Sino-Indian conflict of 1962. There is little public awareness, let alone understanding of events in Myanmar. India has had a simmering crisis on its northeastern border. Since the Myanmar military's February 2021 coup d'etat, over 50,000 civilians have fled across the border from Myanmar's Chin state and Sagang region into India's northeast. New Delhi has maintained a delicate balancing act, allowing refugees into the country but refraining from political pressure on the Junta and its state administrative council. However, as the situation in Myanmar continues to worsen, China has taken full advantage of Myanmar's isolation to deepen its grip on the country. China is likely to capitalize on the anarchy, so India can hardly sit back and watch. India's policy posture towards Myanmar holds crucial importance for the regional balance of power. That, in turn, is largely defined by the security environment in India and northeastern border regions and the evolving foreign relations between the Junta regime and China. New networks of roads, railway lines, airstrips and air corridors are being planned, developed and strengthened. This will have a profound effect on the future of India and its Look East policy. These developments will have far-reaching consequences on the defense of India northeast borders. They will bring India face-to-face with China and Myanmar, while also ushering in defense and economic transformation in the region. Well, welcome to the story of Myanmar, a nation engulfed in a prolonged low-intensity conflict while becoming a battleground for Sino-Indian rivalry. I'm Lipakshi Khurana from StudyIQ IAS, and you are about to embark on a journey of learning like no other. So sit back, grab a pen and paper, and get ready to be inspired. When our neighbor's house is in flames, can we simply look the other way? In the heart of this turmoil is the hidden danger, China. China, with its strategic interest, sees an opportunity in the chaos. But there is one nation that cannot afford to remain a passive observer. India, with its own delicate balance to maintain, holds the key to regional power dynamics. India's Myanmar policy is for this reason driven by geopolitics and its concerns about its border areas. Well, before delving further into India's foreign policy towards Myanmar, let us begin by closely examining the map. The Indo-Myanmar border is marked by high-altitude snow-covered Himalayan ranges that are interspaced with densely covered forest. The fast-flowing tributaries of the mighty Brahmaputra converge on the plains of Assam to form a huge waterway to the Bay of Bengal. As we move south along the border through the eastern boundaries of Nagaland and Manipur with Myanmar, the snowy peaks gradually give way to low mountain valleys. These valleys, covered in thick rainforest, are so dense that the ground beneath them remains dark for hundreds of square kilometers. Continuing our journey southwards, we encounter undulating terrain with small streams, steep ravines and gullies on the Mizoram-Myanmar border. This brings India's eastern borders even closer to the vibrant cities of Sitwe, Mandalay and Rangoon. While looking at the map, we find something more fascinating. India's 8 northeastern states are connected to the rest of the country by a narrow strip of land known as the Siliguri Corridor. India shares a long border of about 1,600 kilometers with Myanmar. The Indian states of Mizoram, Manipur and Nagaland have strong ethnic and kinship ties that extend into Myanmar's Chin state and Saigang region. The Myanmar military's dysfunctional rule has created an environment where porous borders and armed groups in the hinterland have become the norm. Surprisingly, instead of denying territory to Indian rebel groups, the junta offers them sanctuary in Myanmar. In return, these groups are asked to fight against the pro-democracy People's Defense Forces and ethnic revolutionary organizations in the Sagaing region, which are opposed to military rule in Myanmar. This collaboration has led to Indian rebel groups like the People's Liberation Army of Manipur and the Manipur Naga People's Front, using Myanmar territory as a staging ground for attacks in India. Unfortunately, this has resulted in incidents such as the November 2021 ambush on a convoy of the Assam Rifles, a paramilitary force. In fact, the Myanmar military has withdrawn from the Indian rebel base at Taga, Sagaing, which they held previously occupied. This withdrawal has left the site free for the rebel group's use. Let us now look at China's geopolitical ambitions in Myanmar. China's relationship with Myanmar goes beyond borders. A story of trade, investment, and geopolitical strategies. Let's explore how these dynamics shape the geopolitics of the region. China has established significant trade and investment ties with Myanmar, especially in providing food and energy security for its landlocked Yunnan province. While the Myanmar-China pipelines linking Kyak Phu deep sea port to Yunnan play a crucial role in ensuring Yunnan's energy needs, Myanmar is also a key participant in China's Belt and Road Initiative. During President Xi's visit in 2020, numerous BRI projects were agreed upon, solidifying Myanmar's role in this ambitious infrastructure plan. Geographically, Myanmar's strategic location connects China's southwestern interior to the Indian Ocean, making it a vital link in the BRI network. The Indian Ocean holds immense geopolitical importance for China. It is part of China's two-ocean strategy, aiming to balance power and gain influence over both the Pacific and Indian Oceans. Through increased commercial and logistics interest, China seeks to expand its global geopolitical reach. Moreover, the Indian Ocean plays a significant role in China's objective of containing India. China's string of pearls and strategy aims to encircle India through infrastructure projects, both military and commercial. Projects like the Gwadar port in Pakistan, Hambantota port in Sri Lanka, and the Kyak Phu port in Myanmar are all part of this strategy. The success of China's projects in Myanmar, particularly the Kyak Phu deep sea port, is crucial for its economic and geopolitical interest. Interestingly, in the wake of the coup, China wasted no time seizing opportunities to expand its influence in Myanmar. Pledging support to the State Administrative Council, China remains unwavering regardless of how the situation may change. Meanwhile, it has intensified engagement with its allies among the ethnic armed organizations. Since the coup, China has initiated several new infrastructure projects in Myanmar and even transferred jets to the military. Additionally, a deal was struck for Yunnan province to provide the SAC with essential resources like rice and fertilizer. Alarming concerns have been raised by Indian officials regarding potential Chinese intelligence facilities on Myanmar's Kokol Islands. These facilities could provide enhanced capabilities for monitoring naval bases and missile test sites among India's eastern coastline. India's approach towards the SAC, however, seems to be facing challenges. As China takes advantage of the post-coup landscape, India's efforts may not be yielding the desired results. Well, to understand, we need to first look at the history and demography of Myanmar. In the early 1900s, the British had an intriguing idea about Burma. They believed it could be a gateway to China, but something unexpected happened. Instead of getting closer to China, the Burmese people formed a strong bond with India during British rule. Burma became a part of British India, governed as a province just like Punjab or Bengal. However, after World War II, the British faced challenges in Burma. They didn't want to confront a communist insurgency and a radical nationalist movement. However, the Indian government declined the British offer to send Indian troops to restore order. On January 4, 1948, Burma became an independent republic. It was a significant moment for the Burmese people. And in 1955, India refused a permanent seat in the UN Security Council in order to safeguard future Chinese interest. India's Prime Minister Jawaharlal Nehru believed that accepting a permanent seat on the Security Council would alienate China and make it more difficult to resolve the border dispute. But in 1962, everything changed. The Burmese military took control and expelled the large Indian community without any protest. The expulsion was ordered by General Ne Win, who came to power in the 1962 coup. The current population of Indians in Myanmar is estimated to be around 950,000. This represents about 2% of the total population of Myanmar. the majority of Indians in Myanmar live in the cities of Yangon and Mandalay. Earlier, the turmoil in Myanmar received significant coverage in the Indian media, fueled by the expatriate Indian community and Burmese exiles. However, as time passed by, daily news about Myanmar got limited to Myanmar watchers, resulting in little public awareness or understanding of the events there. Post-1990s, the military regained control through force and entered ceasefires with ethnic armed organizations appealing to Burma Buddhist nationalism. This situation led the Indian government to soften its pro-democracy stance to address security concerns in northeast states. Over the years, a belief developed in New Delhi that the Myanmar army would be the most reliable safeguard for India's security interest in countering Indian insurgent groups and China. While Myanmar occasionally acted against IIGs at India's request, it often maintained ambiguous relationships with them, using them for internal agendas. Unlike Bhutan and Bangladesh, which expelled Indian insurgents as friendly gestures, India's approach to IIGs in Myanmar relied more on intelligence-based operations. Myanmar's response varied, cooperating, complying, leaking information, or rebuffing Indian requests based on their own interest. India effectively utilized its armed forces as a tool of diplomacy, building trust and confidence with Myanmar's military over the past 25 years. Well, does excessive reliance on the military relationship hinder Indian diplomacy from truly understanding the reality in Myanmar? It's more than 2 years since the military coup in Myanmar, which thwarted the National League of Democracy's return to power. Following the coup, the military detained and sentenced prominent figures including President Win Myint and Aung San Suu Kyi and established the State Administration Council to govern the country. These actions effectively reversed the democratic transition initiated earlier. Despite the military's brutal use of force against peaceful protesters and the emergence of People's Defense Forces and ethnic armed organizations, the situation remains unstable. The conflict has resulted in thousands of deaths, arrests, and displacements, with neither side having the power to decisively overpower the other. The opposition, supported by ethnic armed organizations, is gaining ground, while the military relies on brute force. The military's failure to regain control is evident, with significant portions of the country under the control of resistance and opposition forces. The military has extended the state of emergency and declared martial law in various regions. The international and Indian response to the ongoing crisis in Myanmar has been relatively muted, with limited media coverage and political attention. International efforts have primarily been led by ASEAN, while major powers like the US and the West have been more preoccupied with other global issues. India, despite its strategic interest and historical ties with Myanmar, has not taken a strong stance on the matter, and there has been a lack of support for Myanmar refugees fleeing persecution. This indifference may stem from historical factors, a shift in India's priorities toward authoritarianism, and a reliance on the Myanmar military for security interest. However, a new approach is needed to address the crisis and steer Myanmar towards a more positive and constructive path. What approach can India take to steer Myanmar towards a more constructive path? Look East, Act East policy. India's policy towards Myanmar is facing scrutiny due to recent developments in the country. Despite the intensifying conflict, India remains committed to its investments and economic ties in Myanmar, which were part of its Look East and Act East policies aimed at increasing engagement with Southeast Asia. However, the worsening situation in Chin state, particularly along the border with India's Mizoram state, raises concerns. The military's aggressive actions, including arson campaigns and airstrikes on civilian areas, have led to a significant displacement of people. The conflict has also taken on a transnational dimension, with reports of bombs landing on the Indian side of the border. While Mizoram state government has been supportive of Chin refugees, the Indian government has been hesitant to allow access to UN agencies and has abstained from international resolutions calling for an end to the violence. So in conclusion, we can say that geopolitics and economics are intricately intertwined, and this holds especially true when it comes to India and China competing for influence in Myanmar. China is Myanmar's largest trading partner, with trade worth a staggering $21.59 billion in 2022. In contrast, India's trade with Myanmar amounted to a mere $1.76 billion. China's trade with Myanmar is approximately 12 times larger than that of India. The stark economic disparity underscores the significance of India's Look East and Act East policies. India cannot afford to let the ruling junta become a puppet serving China's interest. Hence, India is actively collaborating with other regional players such as Japan and the US to counter China's influence in Myanmar. Simultaneously, India remains steadfast in its commitment to the democratic aspirations of the people of Myanmar. So how is India balancing this act of democratic aspirations of the people of Myanmar while engaging the ruling junta? India's Foreign Minister S. Jaishankar has clearly articulated the country's continued engagement with the ruling junta, just like Russia and China. While India's long-standing relationship with Myanmar cannot be judged as solely based on the current political circumstances. As a direct neighbor of Myanmar, India faces various border challenges, including organized crime and the presence of Indian insurgents in Myanmar. India acknowledges the complexities of its border relationship and recognizes the need to effectively manage these challenges. While the competition between India and China and Myanmar is expected to continue in the years to come, the need of the hour is to prevent the balkanization of Myanmar, an outcome that would only serve China's interest.